Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com.
Welcome and happy Monday to you as we start a new week. During an appearance yesterday, Sunday morning, on the Sunday Morning Futures, President Trump told Maria Bartiromo there could be a transition period for the economy as tariffs begin taking effect. We have some of the details on that appearance. A revealing report from the Heritage Foundation. Apparently, Joe Biden didn't personally sign a number of executive orders, as evidence showed they were approved using technology known as AutoPen, which is the machine that duplicates a person's signature. We have the latest details on this in today's show as well. And in another DOGE-like exercise, the U.S. Department of Agriculture canceled a grant worth $600,000 for the study of menstrual cycles in transgender men. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Finally, the Department of Government Efficiency announced a further wave of contract terminations late Saturday, noting that they had also identified thousands of cases where more than $300 million in loans were granted to children. I wonder who filled out the applications for them.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Donald Trump once again proving that he is the only man in Washington with the guts to put America first. And, of course, the globalist elites, the Wall Street bankers, the so-called economic experts are literally losing their minds over it. Why? Because Trump's doing exactly what he promised us, bringing back American wealth, protecting American industry, and ending decades of trade abuse from China and Mexico and the rest of the world. So here's what you need to know. Trump, of course, doubling down on his tariff strategy, making it crystal clear that this is about long-term success, not short-term market jitters, and there could be some short-term pain. Last week was a roller coaster in the market. But the reality is this. You can't run a country based on what the stock market feels like on any given day. You have to think big. You have to think strategically, and that is exactly what Trump is doing. Now, if you watched the stock market last week, it kind of stung some days. When our 401k balances are on this roller coaster ride up and down, and particularly for those of you who have already retired and you're depending on that 401k to fund your retirement, you got to have a strong stomach. And as I've said many times in the past, just don't check your 401k statements because you can't do anything about it. President Trump yesterday wouldn't go as far as to say that he was going to predict a recession, but he said there's going to be some adjustments here. So what are we looking at? Maybe a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada if, in fact, everything proceeds as it looks like it's going to. 20% on Chinese imports. Think about all the products that you buy that has made in China on it. And an upcoming potential 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. This is set to take effect in the next few weeks. But this is all fluid. I mean, maybe Trump backs down. Maybe he doesn't. It's all part of his negotiation. It's all part of cutting a deal with these other countries. But I got to believe there's going to be some of these tariffs are going to take place, and they may stay in place for a few months or many months. So let's be very clear what this means for America. The U.S. has been getting ripped off for decades, and it's going to be a little painful to make that adjustment. Globalists sold out our jobs. They sold out our factories, our manufacturing base, in exchange for cheap labor and bigger bonuses. And while the so-called free trade crowd keeps telling us tariffs are bad, who benefits? Not the American worker, not the steel mills in Pennsylvania, not the auto plants in Michigan. Folks, the only people who benefit are the multinational corporations that have outsourced everything that you expect. The American taxpayer, to bail them out if things go south. So when President Trump said over the weekend to Maria Bartiromo that there could be some adjustments, he understands what potentially may happen in order. It's the old no pain, no gain situation. Trump saying is enough with Mexico, with China, with Canada, with Europe, who want access to you and me, who want access to the American consumer. They're going to have to play by the same rules that we do, but it's going to take a little while to get there. That means no more one-sided trade deals, but again, it's going to take a little while to get there. So let's talk about reaction. Wall Street is in a panic, and that's why we saw the stock market up and down last week, because the globalist investors don't want America to be independent. They want the cheap foreign labor. They want the open borders. They want business as usual while the American worker gets stuck with a bill. But not Donald Trump. Trump's trying to get us more independence for the future. He knows that this so-called transition period that he talked about yesterday is going to be temporary. And I don't know, is it 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year? But in the long run, the tariffs, I agree with the president, and I think this is his overall strategy. It brings the jobs back. It brings industry back. We've already had the announcement of some car manufacturers and other industries saying, okay, we're gonna start manufacturing in the United States again. And here's the thing. The left is completely lost on this issue. They spent years whining about outsourcing. They spent years talking about protecting American jobs, but now that Trump's actually doing it, what did they say? Oh, no tariffs. Tariffs are bad. No, we need international cooperation. They don't care about the American worker. They care about the globalist donors and lining their pockets. President Trump's results are already speaking for themselves. He granted a transition period to automakers, not because he's caving, but because he wants to give American companies time to adjust and stay competitive. He may do that with some of these other industries. And some people will say, well, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's flip-flopping here. One day he says there's going to be tariffs. The next day he says there's not. He's going to give them a break or an extension. But that's part of the negotiation. And let's be honest here. The biggest reason these tariffs are happening is because China has been robbing us blind for decades. They manipulate their currency. They steal our intellectual property. They flood our market with cheap garbage, and we let them. We buy it. And then they demand special treatment. I don't think Trump is Joe Biden. I don't think he's going to sit back and let China dictate the rules anymore. And let me tell you one other thing. If you think Trump's tariffs are just about the economics and our economy, I don't think so. This is about national security as well. You know what happens when America becomes dependent on China for steel, for aluminum, for microchips? We become weak. We become just that, dependent. We become beholden to a communist regime that would love nothing more than to see us fail. So this is why we got to get back to manufacturing a lot of these goods ourselves. This is why we can't depend on China. This is bringing that power back home. And Trump sees that. So what's next? Well, the elites are going to scream. Wall Street's going to throw another tantrum, probably multiple tantrums in the coming weeks and months. The globalists are going to panic. And you're going to hear every so-called expert on CNBC and MSNBC say something like, oh, well, this is dangerous. This is risky. Well, they said the same thing in 2017 when Trump cut taxes. What happened? The economy boomed. They said the same thing when Trump deregulated industry, and what happened? Jobs came rolling back. These people are always wrong about Trump, and I think they're going to be wrong again. So to sum it all up, Trump is taking control of our future. He's helping us prepare for the future. He's leveling the playing field. He's holding other countries accountable, and President Trump is making sure that the American worker comes first. It may not be the same job that they have right now, but there will be a job. There'll be a job for everyone in the Trump economy. Again, it may look a little different, but the establishment is nervous because America is going to win. America is going to be first.
Hi, Joey Hudson here. You know, this spring there's a renewed energy and focus on efficiencies, and shaking up unhealthy habits don't serve us well. There's so much chatter about making America great again, but it starts in your home with you being the best, healthiest version of yourself. And PhD Weight Loss is doing their part because for the first time ever, the first 11 callers get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. That is huge. PhD's out to prove that you don't need Big Pharma to reach your goals. It just creates dependency, not long-term change. Dr. Ashley Lucas researched weight loss trends for years and discovered a scientifically proven way to retrain your body to burn fat efficiently without hunger, extreme exercise, or dangerous medications. PhD clients watch their belly fat disappear, their energy skyrocket, cholesterol and blood pressure normalize without starving themselves. I lost over 30 pounds and I've never felt better. So call now and mention promo code Joey for my 2 weeks for free with my program. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com.
Hey, before we move on from the interview yesterday with President Trump on America's on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, Trump made it very clear that he supports Elon Musk and what he and his team are doing at DOGE. He talked about some of the waste and some of the abuse and some of the fraud that Musk has discovered and the work that they're doing over there.
You just said, what he's done is unbelievable. Now, you could then add some, but what about he's found hundreds of billions of dollars worth of fake contracts, and I read them, just a tiny portion of them, the other night. Transgender surgery on mice, the money they're spending on all of this stuff, the whole thing's a scam. And you'll find ultimately that the money that they sent comes back to a lot of the people that made those deals, okay? You're going to find that. What he's also done is made people realize how many people should be cut. Because normally you go in and you say, all right, cut 4% of your workforce. He said cut 50%, 60%, 70%. That's a big thing. No, he's done a great job.
I'd say for those people who are trying to drive a wedge between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, it ain't working. Because that's the man who's proud of what Musk and the DOGE team is doing. And it's just amazing. It's amazing some of the waste and the fraud that they're uncovering over there. On the text line, Caroline says, hey, Joey, I've not heard much news about the unexpected death of Texas Democrat Representative Sylvester Turner, which occurred last Wednesday, the day after President Trump's speech. What does this mean for the House composition and the future of his seat? Thank you and have a great day. Well, you know, that was sad that this, I think he was, 70 or so, and just dropped over the day after Trump's speech. I mean, he was just elected last November. But here's why, as I understand it, Texas Governor Greg Abbott will declare a special election. And once he declares the date of the election, then they have like 60 days for that to happen. Since this is a special election, as I understand it, there'll be no primaries. Just anyone who wants to run, Democrat, Republican, whatever, is sort of a free-for-all. Everybody gets their name on the ballot, and whoever gets the most votes will have that seat. It's in a Democrat district, so it's most likely going to be another Democrat. Faye has a message on the My Pillow message line.
Joey, this is Faye. Our government is stopping the flow of drugs at our borders, which is wonderful. But on the other hand, the government is doling out funds to small towns and cities, and these funds are oftentimes being used to create parks. And most of the time, these parks are close to houses, and these towns or cities lots of times have no law enforcement. When the sun goes down, the druggies go to the park to do their evil deeds. Many times, the parks are so close to houses until citizens are really not safe. I think before the government doles out money to cities and towns, they need to ensure that there is law enforcement present if these funds are going to be used to create parks. This is an established fact. Thanks, Joey.
Faye, I understand your concern. Here's what we have to do, because we certainly can't let these hoodlums, these thugs, have us living in fear that we can't even have a park or a new park. So as the border is closed down and as we start deporting all of these illegals, I think all of our cities will become safer, and it'll be safe for kids to play in the park again. We can't live in fear. Your comments are welcome on the MyPillow message line as well. When you go to MyPillow.com, be sure and use promo code Joey. For example, you can save over 50% on a number of items when you use promo code Joey. Save 30% on the brand new My Crosses. You know the cross that Mike Lindell wears? When you see him, you can have your very own. He's been wearing it for over 20 years. 30% off when you use promo code Joey. When you go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Get the 2025 6-piece towel, MyPillow towel sets for only $29.98 right now with promo code Joey. These are the best towels, the most comfortable, the softest, and most absorbent towels you'll ever own. They're my favorites. The initial quantities are always low. They go very quickly, so make your order today at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Here's the good news, too. Remember the $75 free shipping rule? Well, that's been suspended right now. You don't have to spend $75. All orders ship absolutely free right now when you use promo code Joey at MyPillow.com. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Always use promo code Joey. Albert writes on the text line, the Democrats have lost their minds. Yep, they have. We can agree on that, Albert. What is it with their singing, their poems, and I assume action figure moves? They look and act like fools. I'm assuming you're talking about when they broke out in song when, what's his name, Al Green was censored last week, and they what was it they started singing? We Shall Overcome or whatever. Dan writes, hey, Joey, this is Dan in Greenville. Question for you. Do you know much about annexation laws? Because it seems like Travelers Rest is trying to annex more and more areas, it looks like, and how do we stop that from happening? Well, Dan, annexation is not necessarily a bad thing. And you're talking about, I know, this project up in Travelers Rest. It's the Inn on Altamont, I think they're calling it, this potential hotel that would be there on the backside of Paris Mountain. And people have just blown this out of proportion. First off, if you hear some of the criticism on it, you would think that as you're driving around downtown Greenville or up Poinsett Highway, you're going to see this hotel right on top in the middle of Paris Mountain. That's not the case. It's on the lower back part of the mountain. You probably won't even be able to see it from Greenville. But as far as Travelers Rest annexing it, and by the way, I had the mayor of Travelers Rest on over the weekend. If you missed Word on the Street Saturday or Sunday, you can also go back and listen on my podcast, too. Just go to Odyssey or wherever you listen to your podcast, search for Joey Hudson, Just the Truth. And the weekend edition had my interview with Mayor Brandy Amadon, and we talked about this. Now, there's not a lot that she can say right now because, in reality, there's not a proposed project yet. They haven't even submitted it to the city. But the developers made it clear that they're going to. And once that happens, the mayor explained to me, then they'll start their process of whether or not they want to annex it. But I don't think it's a bad thing for Travelers Rest. And it's certainly not going to kill or destroy Paris Mountain like you're hearing some of these groups talk about. But yes, Travelers Rest can annex this area, and it would be completely legal. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Continuing today's show, a couple weeks back, I had the opportunity to interview Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Riles. Remember that? If you missed it, go back and listen on the Odyssey app or at my website, joeyhudson.com. Just search for Joey Hudson, Just the Truth. And it was about 2 weeks ago, I guess. And I'm really becoming a fan of this lady. Over the weekend, the U.S. Department of Agriculture canceled a grant worth $600,000. Now, you ready for this? For the study of menstrual cycles in transgender men. The Southern University Agriculture and Mechanical College in Louisiana was the recipient of the grant, according to a database on usaspending.gov. And it went through explaining the process that we all know that women go through at a certain age. But this grant also said it's important to recognize that transgender men and people with masculine gender identities, intersex, and non-binary persons may also go through menopause. At any given moment, about 26% of the world's population is menstruating, it says. The study seeks to address growing concerns related to this, including the potential use of natural fibers such as hemp in feminine hygiene products that I guess transgender men use as well. The grant had been scheduled to remain until April of 2027. This study was first uncovered by the conservative nonprofit American Principles Project, which has identified more than 340 federal grants issued during the Biden-Harris administration to various institutions, including colleges and hospitals, that totaled more than $128 million in federal funds. Secretary of Agriculture Rollins on social media posted, canceled, $600,000 grant to study menstrual cycles in transgender men. Good for her. Meanwhile, over at Columbia University, the Trump administration announced that it will rescind more than $400 million in federal grants to this esteemed university, citing concerns over rising anti-Semitism on campus and the school's failure to address it. Now, remember all those protests that the university allowed to happen? I mean, in some cases, they literally closed down the campus and closed buildings to where classrooms, to where classes had to be canceled or either were all online. Remember that? And the Columbia University administration didn't seem to be concerned about it initially. Well, the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Education, and the U.S. General Services Administration announced the initiation of a comprehensive review of more than $5 billion in federal grant money that goes to Columbia University. Now, why are they getting $5 billion? They said, in light of ongoing investigations for potential violations of Title 11 of the Civil Rights Act related to anti-Semitism on campus, we are reviewing everything. Now, don't you know some of those folks, some of those administrators, that university president up there, they're literally shaking in their boots about losing $5 billion? The university faced ongoing anti-Israel protests this week, reminiscent of those student encampments. I mean, remember the students literally took over the campus after the Hamas attack on October the 7th. Students swarmed and attempted to take over a library on campus. There were like 9 arrests just last week as renewed focus came on this university campus. Linda McMahon, the Trump administration Secretary of Education, which, by the way, hopefully is going to be going away completely. I think she is going to be our last Secretary of Education, or as we know it today. She visited Columbia University on Friday to meet with university leaders and to discuss the ongoing concerns about the anti-Semitism on campus and them allowing it to happen. In a statement she released, Americans have watched in horror for more than a year now as Jewish students have been assaulted and harassed on elite university campuses. Repeatedly overrun by anti-Semitic students and agitators, unlawful encampments and demonstrations have completely paralyzed day-to-day campus operations, depriving Jewish students of learning opportunities to which they are entitled. She said institutions that receive federal funds have a responsibility to protect all students from discrimination. Colombia's apparent failure to uphold their end of the basic agreement raises very serious questions about the institution's fitness to continue doing business with the United States government. Good for her. Good for them. The move to slash more than $400 million in grant funds to Colombia is in line with what President Trump is doing across all federal agencies. As part of the executive orders, the Trump administration established a multi-agency task force to combat anti-Semitism. His first major action was the review of Colombia's grant funds, and wouldn't it be nice if they just cut all of those billions and let Columbia University do what they want to? If they want to allow these Jewish-hating people on their campus, let them do it. They just don't get any of our tax dollars. And it gets even better now. The Department of Government Efficiency, affectionately known as DOGE, announced a further wave of contract terminations late Saturday. These people are working around the clock through the weekends. They noted that they've identified thousands of cases where more than $300 million in loans were granted to children. DOGE said it identified that the Small Business Administration granted nearly 5,600 loans for $312 million to borrowers whose only listed owner was 11 years old or younger at the time of the loan. The loans were issued in 2020 and 2021 while the world struggled with the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, and it's unclear what they were used for. I can tell you what it's used for. Some parent bought a new car or a new home. The agency wrote, while it is possible to have business arrangements where this is legal, that is highly unlikely for these 5,593 loans, as they all also use a Social Security number with the incorrect name. Now, how did that application ever get approved? If you had an application with a Social Security number on it that did not match the name on the application, how do you approve that? When making the announcement, DOGE shared a post on X when it also revealed that in 2020-2021, the SBA issued 3,095 loans. These are in addition to those for $333 million to borrowers over 115 years old. So you can't accuse them of discriminating on age, can you? They loaned it to young people, to children who couldn't even complete the application, to people who no way they're still alive. 100. In one of the examples, the borrower was marked as alive in the Social Security database, being 157 years old. They received $36,000 in loans through this program. These loans included the famous PPP, the Paycheck Protection Programs, and the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. That was all part of that money that Joe Biden rushed out the door to give it to people during COVID. In the president's speech last week to Congress, he bashed instances where he said millions of people aged over 100 were listed on the Social Security database, with one being as old as 360 years old. Now, I hope that's just some type of typing error. Surely our government is not so inadequate that there's someone in the database 360 years old and somebody didn't wake up and think, oh, this is not even possible. DOGE also said they canceled one Department of Agriculture contract worth $10.3 million, which it said, ironically, was initiated for identifying unnecessary contracts. Now, that money went down the tube. If they're paying somebody to identify unnecessary contracts, and we're hearing all these horror stories, wow. That is just amazing, isn't it? Meanwhile, Elon Musk met with a small group of House Republicans last week to discuss his efforts to find about $1 trillion in government waste. People who are in on some of these meetings told Fox News the executive DOGE team is confident they think they can get $1 trillion. Wow. $1 trillion in waste. Back to this Department of Ag contract worth $10.3 million. The cost-saving agency said that termination was one of 162 non-essential contracts that it canceled with a total ceiling value of about $205 million and savings of $90 million. The agency did not say specifically what areas of the federal government's remaining contract terminations are coming up, but I suspect we'll have another DOGE dump sometime this week.
Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. In the final year, 2 years or so of the Biden-Harris administration, we all asked the question, and we contemplated, who was really in charge of the Biden White House? Maybe now we know. There was a lot of speculation if Joe Biden really knew what he was signing with some of those executive orders. Headline, New York Post. Biden used auto pen signature on many official White House docs, raising concerns over his awareness. So here's the story. Dozens of executive orders signed by former President Joe Biden were authorized with identical auto pen signatures, which is raising some serious questions about whether he was fully aware of what was actually being signed. The Heritage Foundation's oversight project uncovered the situation, prompting Biden detractors like Republican Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who is suggesting that it could be used to challenge the legitimacy of orders that the 82-year-old former president signed, especially given concerns about his mental acuity in those final days. Bailey was quoted as saying, "I'm demanding the Department of Justice investigate whether President Biden's cognitive decline allowed unelected staff to push through radical policy without his knowing approval. If true, these executive orders, pardons, and all other actions are unconstitutional and legally void." One of the auto pen signed orders from Biden was in August of 2022, and it was a directive meant to safeguard abortion access during emergency situation, according to the Heritage Foundation. Another was a December 2024 order to close government offices January the 9th to honor the late President Jimmy Carter. So what does this mean? Auto pen signatures are produced by a machine instead of being done by hand. Scores of presidents dating back to Harry Truman or so are believed to have leaned on this type of machine. The oversight project said last week, "We gathered every document we could find with Biden's signature over the course of his presidency. All used the same auto pen signature except for the announcement that the former president was dropping out of the race last year." The oversight project gave examples of Biden's signatures on two executive orders that it surmised came from auto pen and contrasted that with an image of his signature on the letter announcing that he was pulling out of the 2024 presidential contest after he failed so miserably in the debate with Donald Trump. According to the report, Biden's signature on the two executive orders essentially looked identical, while the signature on the letter about withdrawing from the 2024 race had slight differences, including the lack of junior at the end of his name. It was just
sign J.R. Biden. The foundation cited the fact that Biden had been seen publicly in signing ceremonies on a number of occasions throughout his presidency, so it's unclear exactly how they use the auto pen. But this is a machine that just signs your name. And so a trusted advisor could easily have come up with an executive order, put it in the auto pen. Nobody would have known whether it was Joe Biden had actually signed it or this machine signed it. So that's the question that the Heritage Foundation's project is asking. Do we need to go back and review a lot of these executive orders? And did Joe Biden know that they were being signed by the auto pen? The oversight project said whoever controlled the auto pen controlled the presidency. And that's a fact. Questions about Joe Biden's mental acuity was rampant, particularly the last year, but pretty much throughout his presidency. It capped off in those final months, but we all suspected it throughout the 4 years because Biden had a tendency for these very public faux pas in which he'd fumble his words. He had appeared to lose his sense of direction at times. He'd be standing over in a corner shaking hands with somebody who wasn't there. And you got to remember that Biden started using the shorter flight of stairs to board Air Force One rather than the traditional 18-foot staircase because they were afraid he would fall. And he started wearing those tennis shoes with his suits because they were afraid he would fall. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. We're all going to get old, or actually we pray we're going to get old. We pray that we'll live to 82 and beyond as long as we can be healthy. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you just got to recognize the fact that you're not, at that age and in that condition, you're not fit to be president of the United States. Biden's aides and allies initially denied concerns, of course, about his mental state. Of course, as soon as he had that very poor performance in the debate, they all turned on him very quickly because they saw their little gravy train leaving. And, it was very apparent with that debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in late June. He appeared just like he was staring off into distance at times. His mouth was like just half open, and he had that raspy voice, and you could tell he was losing his train of thought often. So it really had everyone, even the Democrats, pausing because you're thinking, do we want this man to have access to the nuclear codes? Do we want him to be responsible for responding if our country is attacked? Mr. Bailey wrote in a letter to the Department of Justice, there are profound reasons to suspect that Joe Biden's staff and political allies exploited his mental decline to issue purported presidential orders without his knowing approval. Bailey cited House Speaker Mike Johnson's accusations that Biden privately forgot about executive action he'd taken on natural gas during a conversation the two had had. Of course, the Democrats just really came out against the House Speaker, saying that he was exaggerating. Maybe he wasn't. Concerns about the president's use of auto pen have come up multiple times. But boy, now we really need to take a look at this. Former President George W. Bush, for example, had previously tasked the Justice Department with assessing the constitutionality of auto pen, and the government's lawyers concluded it was legal. Bush, however, decided not to use auto pen because of concerns that he had that it could be challenged. And so he just signed them himself. His successor, Barack Obama, also used the auto pen, though, for key documents, we're told, like his signing of the 2013 Fiscal Cliff Compromise Bill, among other important documents. It's not going to be pretty if, in fact, we find out that a lot of these pardons, for example, a lot of the controversial executive orders. I mean, I'm surprised somebody hasn't thought about looking at this before the Heritage Foundation started comparing these. So what happens If we find out that Joe Biden really didn't know what he was signing, let's say, for example, some of the pardons. And look, maybe he didn't really pardon Hunter. Maybe Jill had control of the auto pen. But if we do learn that Joe Biden really didn't understand some of the executive orders that he purportedly signed, but was signed by this machine, does it really mean they're invalid? Do we go back and invalidate them? Should we? Send me a text. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Love to get your feedback on this. Do we go back and undo this? And how far back do we go? That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by the Mike Gallagher Show. Yours truly. I'll be sitting in for Mike today, so I hope you'll join me. Followed by Bill Frady, Charlie James, and Mark Levin. I'll be back again tomorrow for your first cup of coffee at 5 a.m. for more of Sunrise Carolina. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.